Hey everybody, one other episode of the Indie Hour. It is episode 34. Man, we are... I need to do the math on how many double episodes we did in the beginning. I think it was at least 10. So that would be 20 and then 24 more. We're getting close to 50 indie games. Man, this series is... I only started this series in like January of 2025. So maybe it was fall of 2024. Anyway, it hasn't been going that long. It's 34 weeks. So we're in the 8th month. It's got to be more than that. God, I'm bad at math. It's not quite 10 months. It's like 9-ish. So yeah, it must have been like fall or winter of last year we started this. Which is crazy because this feels like a series we've been doing forever. And this was one of my like, how do I get GMG back on brand kind of shows. So if you haven't seen one of these before, we try and raise the profile for some indie games that are either, by boutique publishers, small print like companies, and that generally the GMG patrons just don't think are getting enough attention. If you are a GMG patron, you can nominate these each week in the patron poll and then vote on the previously nominated ones. We usually have about 20 on the go at any one time. To check out. And this week it's Brimstone and Lead. So this is a arena battler skirmish game by Mummy Laundering. And is you can do a pay what you want on itch right now for this one. And there is a full like paid version coming with like additional content and stuff. And so it's sort of like a Doom-inspired, QUAKE-inspired arena battler. So if you've ever played an arena game before, the popular ones on the market right now would be like the Mantic Halo series, like Halo Fireteam, any of the Doom-like board games, which are all fantastic. If you haven't played them, they're super fun and silly. And even games like Aristea from Corvus Belli from Infinity, they fall into this category. In fact, Warhammer Underworlds from Games Workshop is like an arena battler, and so is its skirmish game Warcry. What we mean by arena battler is, imagine small kitchen table size. Typically, you have a very small group of units, and the game itself is a brawl in a small area where you can typically unlock like power-ups. Very often there's a respawn system, so no one's ever knocked out of the game. And you typically have like a really fast-paced sort of movement style and combat. Now, there can also be like variations. It's just like everything, just like movies. And music, any kind of like type will have like subcategories and subtypes. Just ask any fan of metal music or hip hop music. Like there's 1,000 different subcategories of these things, and this is no different. So this is picked by the patrons this week for us to review, and we can dive in and check it out. But there is a ton of additional content here too. You want to make sure you get this because it does use a reference sheet and then lots of cards because you can pick up all kinds of bonus things: chainsaws, trench knives, grenade launchers, sanctifier, sniper rifles, assault rifles, chain guns, shotguns. And then you can see the little power-up tokens here. So like when you flip a weapon token, it'll have one of these things on the bottom. These are meant to be printed and then to use like bottle cap stickers for. Cut and paste these tokens for random weapons discussed on page 50. So bottle cap tokens, you can get like a pad of like 100 of them on Amazon for like usually $10. They're like a sticker that's clear on one side, and they're meant for making bottle cap jewelry. I use them all the time for making tokens. My original Infinity tutorial for making Infinity tokens has about 1 million views. Same thing with these turn tokens. These are all sleevable cards for your different objectives, and then a variety of other tokens here for like different status effects and like collecting souls and objectives and things too. So you're gonna want to make sure that you print off both these because like this and the rulebook, because you're gonna need those play assets to actually play the game. So let's dive in now and check out this. I think it's roughly 100-page rulebook, but it's 50-page rulebook, but it's in bifold, so like it's 27, like 25, 27 pages when you actually get it and download it. And this is, like I said, available on itch. So beautiful cover art here. Love this illustration. We got a with a gun. You could very easily play this game with a combination of some of the best indie miniatures, but you could also use like pop culture minis like GW minis and stuff too. I really like this first page because there's a ton of acknowledgments for what Dylan's, and sorry, this is authored by Dylan Green. A ton of acknowledgments for what his influences and sort of like acknowledgments for like the help and stuff. Our Space Weirdos gets a shout out here. We covered Space Weirdos in a previous episode by Casey Garsk. Mercs by Brian Schotten. Brian's a wonderful human being. Actually, I've had dinner at his house, and he is one of the author of one of the original kitchen table games back in like the mid-aughts. Mike Butcher did the editing for him. Demonicus and Devil's Tongue fonts by Dan Zadarozny, I think. I'm going to fuck that up. I'm sorry. And then cover art by Arthur Assa, who did, and this is why I love this, he did the cover for the original Last Days. Arthur's a fantastic artist, and yeah, one of my favorite, like sort of almost, like, it's not cartoon, it's like pop illustrations. I love his art. Yeah, go check out Crom. And then the underlying areas of Adrenaline and how it works are from Metal Slug Tactics. And the underlying ideas behind how Counter works are based on Refusal Chess by Fred Galvin and Bursts from Guilty Gear. Art by Shotgun Nun, Art of Shotgun Nun, Hell Knight, and Space Nom Soldier by Del Tiegler. And then it all sent to Catherine, who does not understand the gaming things that Dylan does, but does believe in him, which I think is great. And we got all our consultants, playtesters, and touchstones here as well. Touchstones, of course, things I mentioned earlier, like Doom, Quake, HEXXEN, Dark Souls, Blasphemous Wrath, Aeon of Ruin, Hellforged, Warhammer, Terminator, Aliens, The Dirty Dozen, The Bridge of Remagen, The Guns of Navarone, Kelly's Heroes, Black Hawk Down, Outpost, Gaunt's Ghosts, and Sharp's Rifles. And so let's actually get into what is happening. Well, Hell's taken over the world. Shocker, Brimstone and Lead. Hell has taken over everything. You are fighting for life, and you have to, like, basically use cover, move fast, grab guns, and kill as much as you can. The game is about speed, and so there's no measurement. It uses a hex-based system. It's about playing your opponent. You have to try and seize the initiative using the counter token. We need to play a 3x3 playing space and at least 67 hexagonal MDF tiles of at least 3.5 corner to corner, so like Settlers of Catan size. Square tiles can also work as an offset grid pattern. Larger tiles 4 or 5 inches work better then. So we're looking at, like I said, 4-inch tiles. Now, the GMG patrons and I, in like the pre-show here, where we sat down and did some inside stuff, we did a little like look around. So if you are a GMG patron and you're watching this in the future, you just catch this on YouTube. If you want to become a GMG patron, we do a little research on where the best places to get these MDF tokens and stuff are, or cards, and how we would make the table. We'll talk a little bit afterwards as well. But this is a kit bash opportunity. 5 to 10 28 mil minis per player with recognizable firearms, some printed mission cards and tokens from the player's kit, like I mentioned earlier. Something to represent a counter token, like a poker chip. So you want something cool. I would get like a belt buckle with a scorpion inside it, encased in glass or resin. That's what I would hand back and forth as a scorpion. I don't ask. I don't know why my brain went there. 10 turn trackers, 5 per player. Poker chips work for this too. Some D6s for making damage rolls. You need them in a single color for adrenaline, so like a big D6, usually in green, because you only have to 6 adrenaline at a time. And then red glass beads to track strain, noted in these rules with the symbol that's red. Cube of 36 green dice and a second red die will be more than enough. Green dice can be used to track adrenaline, while the red dice can be used to make damage rolls and track strain. And then lots of terrain, especially low walls for cover. Gears of War style is kind of the reference that they give a lot in here. What's here and what's not. These rules contain the heart of the game and what you need to play, but the rest for list building, factions, campaigns, etc. are still in development, and these rules will always be free, but then the full game will be paid when it eventually comes together. So you can see here some hexagonal movement. If you played Dead Zone or the Halo games, this will be kind of familiar. When you make a movement, you move zone to zone. And one of the things I'm most impressed by in this game is the diagrams are fantastic. There's a professional level of diagrams in here that most indie games only aspire to. So good job. But these line of sight diagrams stuff, when we see the movement ones later on, they're actually really well done. So you have to move from zone to zone. You can be placed anywhere in the zone when you move. You have speed and toughness. Speed is how many zones you can move. Toughness is how resilient you are. Fragile units have like a toughness of 2, but most have a resilience of 6. And then model's conditions. You're ready if you're unharmed and haven't taken any actions. Strain represents a model panicking in the heat of battle. Strain models can only take rally actions, cannot provide support fire, and cannot engage enemies in melee. Indicated model has strain. You just put a red bead next to it. And then dead. You're dead. You get taken off until you respawn. Adrenaline. This represents the focus and will of a soldier to keep them alive. A model with adrenaline can gain and then spend it. For every adrenaline that you have, you can spend it 1-to-1 for typical things like meleeing or activating special abilities. And we hit by a damage roll, you can also spend adrenaline as a 1-to-1 to just ignore wounds or strain. So for every point of damage you would take, you can spend adrenaline to get rid of it. And the adrenaline is a little green die that you leave next to the miniature. Or their card if you use cards. Weapon attributes, operational range, so how effective it is, it's how many zones it can fire. Its firepower is how many dice it shoots. Its support fire, so the number of dice it would use when you are shooting with somebody else. So like basically it's to represent the idea of like somebody like shooting down range. He's got 2 or 3 friends in the same zone as him, and they're going to add a die to each firepower. So like 3 soldiers in a zone, one guy takes the action, the other 2 will add bonus dice. So like this shotgun, it's got a 2 dice firepower. If 3 guys with shotguns were all in the same zone, they'd roll 4 dice, right? Because you get +2 supporting fire. And then special rules, both barrels, you can spend adrenaline to reroll dice with this one. Chunky salsa, for every 6 this model rolls, inflict a bonus wound. And then skirmisher, you can fight in melee, so in the same zone as somebody else, but you get +1 dice when you do so, because like up close, it's really dangerous. And then stagger, when this model shoots and wounds and strains an enemy, you can move the enemy 1 base width away from this model. And a base width is the base of miniature, so like an inch. And I think it's in the play sheet as well. Rolling dice and damage. So when a model shoots, fights in melee, or harms, roll a number of dice, compare each dice to the target's toughness. If it's less than their toughness, no result. If it's equal to their toughness, the model takes a strain. If it's greater than their toughness, the model takes a wound. A roll of 1 is always a miss and does nothing. A roll of 6 is always a hit. Even a model with a 7 toughness would then suffer a strain. A model can have only 1 strain. If it takes a second one, it takes a wound instead. So like for instance, if I'm shooting someone with a toughness of 6, the first 6 strains it, and then every 6 after that will do wounds. When a model takes wounds, it can spend a number of adrenaline to ignore them. Otherwise, it's dead. A model that ignores wounds in such a way is still wounded for the purpose of interacting effects such as falling. And then rolls 1 and 6. So yeah, like this is an example here. Here, none with an assault rifle, which is power 1 dice, uses focus fire for +1 dice, and adds 2 damage, 2 dice damage roll against a demon with a toughness of 4. It has 1 strain and 1 adrenaline. So if it rolled a 4+, it would hit, but it rolls a 6 and a 1. The 6 inflicts 1 wound. You must soak the wound with a strain or adrenaline, or it's going to die. And since the 1's lower than its toughness, it's ignored. Rolls of 4 and 5. The 4 inflicts a strain, and then the 5 inflicts a wound. The demon can still soak the wound with adrenaline, but since it has already got some strain, the second one becomes a wound. With no adrenaline left, then it dies. So like, if you're already strained, you take a wound automatically. You can still use the adrenaline to ignore it, but basically you're budgeting your adrenaline to try and like not die. And then glory kills, you gain adrenaline if it kills an enemy, and an additional one if it does excess wounds than its target. So let's say that same demon, it only has 1 wound. If it took 3 wounds, you get 2 for having that excess wounds and 1 for having killed it for glory kills. So 3 total. And now you can see the board set up. So this is a 3 foot by 3 foot area, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 along the bottom, and then 9 along the top. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, 9 crossways. So it's a relatively dense board size, and at 3.5 inches, I'm sure you can find hexes that are this size. You could also just take a 3 foot piece of MDF, get 1 hex that you want in the right size, and then just carve in all of the hexes and make like a textured board. You can see your deployment zone is your spawn along the 1 edge. Then you get your forward deployment, the next 2 zones of the opponent's side. These are separate forward areas. And then contested is the center line, which is 3 across. Cover the table with enough terrain so there's no fire lines from end to end with it, some form of cover. And then you draw mission cards. So there are 6 different missions: capture, harvest, hunt, ignite, and procession and sacrifice. So you want to kill around an altar for sacrifice. Procession is, you have to find an item and then move it to sacred stations. Ignite, there's torches you have to try and light and have in your color, basically. So think of all of these as like Unreal Tournament missions or Quake missions. Hunt, lost wonders from a shadow world light buried in the ruins. Recover them and learn their secrets. So it's like a get to points and then hunt things. Harvest, killed models drop soul tokens that can be collected for power or rescued by allies. And then capture, a legendary relic from your opponent's faith left vulnerable. Capture the relic to grant favor for your patron saints or demonic masters. And then deployment, you put your guys inside your spawn zone. Both players alternate placing models until you've placed your whole fire team. You've got the single turn. So turns, rounds, and games. You have turns, a single model taking an action. Round is 5 turns per player, and the game is 3 rounds. So effectively, you're going to have a stack of like, it's almost like orders in Infinity, right? You're going to have 5 different turns per player. So effectively, you have 15 turns over the course of the game. At the beginning of every round, give each player a stack of turn tracker tokens. When a player takes a turn, they remove 1 token from the stack. Once both players remain all the tokens, the round's over. For each round, players alternate respawning all their killed models, and then check for VPs, and then begin a new round. So people die quick. On the player's turn, they can pick a ready model, announce its activation, take an action with the model, so advance, focus fire, snap fire. Once it's done, the player's turn ends and their opponent takes their turn. This follows the same process. You pick a ready model and take an action. This continues back and forth with both players activating models to move around the board, attack their opponent, and claim objectives. Or that's how it should go. The hitch is the counter token. When you pick a model to activate, before you choose what action to do, your opponent may spend the counter token, and a few things happen. Your model takes a strain and therefore can't go. Your opponent immediately chooses a model, gains a adrenaline, and immediately takes an action with +1 power and +1 speed. So this is why you typically have more models than you have actual goes to do. But now the counter token passes to you and the process starts again. Actions come in two types, primary actions and secondary actions. So basically, if you use the counter token, you interrupt, but your opponent then has the chance to interrupt too. So like, that sounds like, why wouldn't you just always counter, you know what I mean, and keep your opponent from going? The reason for that is you might not have a target and there's no reason to really counter then. So you have to kind of patiently wait for the best time to use your counter token and then throw the counter token to them. But if your plan doesn't work, like let's say your dice go cold, then your opponent's gonna have the opportunity to counter right back. So you really do, like, as soon as you have the opportunity to leap on somebody, you got to be sure it's the right time, because if it doesn't work out, then your opponent's getting that token, and the next time you're supposed to go, they might jump on you and do it back and get like a double action. Primary actions. So ready models can be countered when they do this. They can advance, which is move. Combine movement with shooting, fighting, and melee, or interacting on the board. They can run, move fast, and gain adrenaline. Focus fire, shoot but +1 dice, but you don't get to move. And then snap fire. Punish enemy models for moving through your model line. So it's kind of like an Overwatch. And then secondaries, these can only be used by strained or dead models. Either respawn or remove your strain if you rally. But most actions are like a combination of kind of those things. And you can see here a little flowchart for how it works. Like I said, all of the charts in this are great. Upkeep effects, you put down a dice basically, and you're at the end of rounds, or actions, sorry. Running and gutting, so like a basic move, you can move up to your speed, and then you can also fire. Just a movement game, and because you have tiny plastic armor and moving. Ready models not engaged in melee can move using advance or run. Run allows you to move with your speed +1, while advance allows a model to move up to its speed and combine movement with things like shooting and fighting. Anytime during your activation, you can spend 1-1 in adrenaline in order to move an extra zone. And then you can see you're climbing. This is where I say these illustrations are really good. So going up a level, even if it's in the same, actually it would have to be in the same hex, costs you a movement. So levels are vertical and horizontal, and you want your terrain to kind of have like obvious levels. Most like retail terrain's gonna have like 3 to 4 inch levels anyway. So if you're building your own, make it kind of like consistent. Otherwise, yeah, just use the retail terrain that you're buying. So for instance, this guy, he starts in this zone at the back left, and then moves up 1, over 2, and then down 1. So he's moving 4 total speed. And then jumping, as long as you maintain your level, you can clear gaps, which I think is really cool because that's a very first-person shooter, jump across the gap kind of a motion. And I think is sort of like indicative of what kind of game this is. So movement's pretty free-flowing. And if you've played Dead Zone before or games like it, they use like a gridded surface. Even Battletech, this is pretty familiar probably. Falling can take damage. Enemy models that move within 1 base width of ready enemy models are drawn to base-to-base contact. So there's like a snap to melee effect here and must end their movement there. And then hazardous terrain, like razor wire and stuff, you can move through, but you might take damage. Obstacles can slow you down. So there is a good amount of like little like flavor text in here too. Like this first they gutted the sun thing. It's some great illustrations. Nice line of sight diagram. So if it's direct, you're not obscured. Obstructed, you can see somewhere on the target's base. And then blocked, you can't see the base at all. Firing extra front 180. Sorry, front 90 rather. And then you got chest high walls. So this is like the type of cover that you can actually snap to. Your board should have plenty of low walls. And then you'll have like a same sort of like thing with obstructed terrain. If you control the wall, it's direct. If you don't control the wall, it's in between. It's obstructed. So you can see this top diagram. Neither of them is controlling the wall, and therefore the line of sight's obstructed. They're both controlling the wall, but then there's uncontrolled walls in between, obstructed, and then direct is I control the wall and you're standing in the open. Obstructed because models can block line of sight, and then you shoot guns. You get your basic guns. If you have a friend that's also supporting, he's also in line of fire. So you can see here this diagram. I was talking about this before. The assault rifle's in range and line of sight. There's also a shotgun in range and line of sight. You're getting your total fire. So when a model shoots, the attack's modified by all the supporting fire of ready allied models, so people who haven't operated yet. And then you get shooting at elevation. If you're elevated, it does add distance. The attacker's on the ground, the target's 2 levels up, add 2 to the distance. If it's 1 level off the ground, the target's 2 levels up, add 1 to the distance. A model has cover if line of sight is drawn to its opponent and is obstructed. You ignore 1 wound or strain from damage rolls in the defender's choice. Targets in this cover may not ignore the strain that happens from rolling dice from snap fire because it does not come from a damage roll. So like you can keep your head down by being overwatched. More stuff from support rifles and support fire here, but they have to be in range and line of sight, so operational range. Get all your mods for melee, and just a bunch of like action examples. I'm not gonna go too deep into these, but like I said, the fact that there's like actual diagrams and how this works instead of a huge block of text, it's saving a ton of text on this rulebook. Focus fire, don't move and fire, so you're going to add to your shooting. Snap fire, choose an enemy model that's moved in the previous turn without changing facing. Draw line of sight to any point along its movement path within operational range. That model takes a strain, then shoot as if it was in your chosen point on a 1 dice. If someone's already moved in the turn, you can do snap fire basically at the last thing that activated. So let's say somebody like runs in front of your guy who's unactivated. He's risking snap fire because your next activation, you can take a snap fire action, and that means you're going to do strain to him, even if he's out of your line of sight at the end of the move. It's Overwatch without having to act like interrupt the other person's turn because you already have the counter action. And I like that because Overwatch is kind of baked into the counter mechanic in this game, whereas Snapfire is more like you're suppressing people that go by, so you have to be careful about how you move your models and who can see you when you move. Use Adrenaline before Snapfire to extend the model's range and line of sight to strike a target that moved. So you can boost it too with your Adrenaline. I kind of love the gun that this guy is carrying in this piece of art. It looks like a Super Soaker married an assault rifle. It's pretty great. And then rally, because you can take off your strain to rally. And then you can also rally and move if you use Adrenaline, which is cool. Respawn, come back to like in your spawn points. You can tell this isn't different because there's just a thing in here under the trench knife that says art. Art goes here. And I really enjoyed that. And then building a fire team. You build a fire team up to 12 points. Every model has 1 class, a trench knife, and an additional weapon. Except for the assault rifle, no 2 models in your team can have the same weapon. So scouts are speed 3, toughness 3, and cost 3. Troopers are speed 2, toughness 4, and cost 3. And then heavies are speed 1, toughness 5, and cost 3. So you're going to get 4 guys, basically. Treat weapons as broad categories, like a sniper rifle can be an actual one, a railgun, a laser blaster, whatever. It looks right, basically. And classes are provided to cover the broad category of what you want to bring. Making a fire team isn't a very rich experience. I don't want this to be some game about list building or meta chasing. I want this to be a game where you can grab some of these you have on hand and play. I do like this. But with the spine and guts of the game solid, the next phase is making different factions and wizards and spells and stuff. And if you want to see a draft, there's a hyperlink to it as well. Trench knife for stabbing people. Assault rifles, shotguns. Look at all this art. Art. Sniper rifles and chain guns. You can see here they all have different effects. So like the sniper rifle has pinpoint accuracy. You can spend your adrenaline to ignore cover and or fire into melee. Allies in melee get add +1 dice as per gang up, but support fire doesn't apply. The chain gun has full auto. After using focus fire, this model can spend additional adrenaline to focus fire again. Grenade launchers, rocket boots. Grenade launcher is an area denial weapon. Rocket jump. This should be treated as 3 zones move because you can use your missile launcher to jump, which is so stupid. This model may ignore the cost of vertical movement instead of suffering a 1 dice damage roll. Man, who doesn't remember rocket jumping? I love that it's in here. Rocket jumping was such a thing in QUAKE and in Unreal Tournament. Sanctifiers and chainsaws. And then we got our toy box rules. So these are additional rules for things in the table. Things like red barrels and switches. This is very Doom, right? Red barrels explode. When wounded, replace them with a grenade token. Switches, when wounded, treat some effects on the board, opening and closing, lowering into lava, etc. And then teleporters, you can jump from one to the other. Designer's notes, combine these rules, match them up. Shoot a switch to raise a platform from lava. 3 dice hazards with a blood rune on it. And then item drops. Use number tokens from the play kit to mark item drop locations after train setup before selecting scenarios. Player A places locations 1 and 2. Player B then moves location 1. It's basically, you're gonna move these and both place them back and forth. They're gonna be random. If you do random weapons, you roll a die. On a 1 or 2, it's nothing. On a 3, it's pick a shotgun or a chain gun. On a 4, it's pick a sniper rifle or grenade launcher. On a 5, it's pick a sanctifier or a chain saw. On a 6, it's pick anything. At start of every round, roll a d6 for item drops, and on 1 to 3, place a weapon token. And then spawning demons. Demons are neutral models, so you can just have random demons on the table as well. They all have their own stats. Before play, set up a number of tokens as seen item drops, and they can move around. At start of every round, roll 2d6 for 1 demon to spawn for 1 location. All spawn demons within... all demons spawn with 1 adrenaline. If you want more demons, roll more dice. When the demon player spawns, the player with the counter token may set up their facing. And then alternate rules, measured movement. If you don't want to use zones, they've got some rules for stopping to cover and some measuring and stuff like that. And then we've got Overwatch rules. Those who hunger for immediacy of Overwatch can remove Snapfire and include Overwatch instead. All ready models considered to be on Overwatch at all time. If your opponent moves a model, such as that's within line of sight and operational range of one of your ready models, you can stop their action and shoot a target with +1 dice. I think I actually like the rules the way it is, but I do see Overwatch being a thing. And that's it. So these are the core mechanics for Brimstone and Lead. And I think this is pretty promising. The designer notes do say that one of the things that's going to be planned is things like a campaign system, factions and Fireteam building, a little bit like Warcry, where you're going to build your own warband of dudes, and then be able to like procedurally take them through encounters. A little bit like, it feels a little bit like Gauntlet. Like you clear a board and that's kind of an encounter, like Brimstone and Lead's going to be that kind of thing. And I did hear some rumblings about that being like the demons and stuff being able to be done as more of like a cooperative or solo mode as well. But we'll see. The spine of the game, as he said, is here, and it looks pretty promising. I like the core mechanics. The nice thing is with design like this, he's built the place to play in and generally how it works. The core mechanics for moving around and doing things are done. And he's got a basic item selection of like fun, broad categories of things to put in so you can use any minis you want. That means now he can add in different thematic packs, right? So you basically get to write like a short list of like room styles that might have different drops in them, that might have different, like you can make the bowl that you're playing in different every time you play. So this is good game design. If you are an indie designer, think about curating how you write your rules like this. What Dylan's done is he started the beginning with like the engine block, and he's going to build the car around it, as opposed to trying to like build the engine while the car is driving, which a lot of people do. They start with their factions. They get excited about lore. They're writing campaign systems at the same time. This is a good measured approach to doing this. And the core mechanic looks nice and tight. This would be a fun one to do like an indie design for. And again, you can use any minis you want. There's lots of like reference here to Wargames Atlantic. He's got some stuff I think I showed off on the website over here, where you can see that there's a bunch of like, different 3D print terrain styles. There's a bunch of, looks like 3D print terrain. There's some Warcry terrain in here. He's using all kinds of things. And it looks like this is the offset squares, which he was using to play test for a while. He mentioned in the rules. And some Wargames Atlantic like minis and stuff. Very cool, like dark, gritty, 28 mag stuff. And because you're using small unit counts, honestly, this is the kind of game that those hashtag 28 folks I think would really enjoy, because again, it's broad categories. It's what you're armed with. You have a weird inquisitorial warband going into hell to play Brimstone and Lead. And it's quick to play. And looks like it'd be a fun game for indie. Like, this is one of those games where if you're an indie gamer and you have a hard time convincing your friends to play indie games, if you're building the board anyway, just build 2 teams with the guys and then teach your friends to play, or tell them bring 4 minis, bring 4 Space Marines and come play. This is one of those things that's like a great kind of gateway style drug into playing indie games more often. So there it is, Brimstone and Lead. We've done another one, and we'll be back next week. So if you're our GMG patron, we are going to be hanging out for the next little bit, talking about the game, talking about what they thought, taking comments, taking questions. There's always some additional content on these on the Patreon. And also, if you want to suggest games for us to cover, the GMG community is the ones who nominate them and vote on them. So become a patron. You can jump in and nominate the games that you think deserve more attention, and we'll cover them here in the Indie Hour. So thanks for watching, and for the GMG patrons for selecting this and going and putting it up online. Nice time, Ash.